when then? From 1916 to 1919. You haven't been in the house then?
There was no electricity in it either. Now, the back porch, you see, was closed in sometime later.
The back porch wasn't here then?
I don't remember. But I think this was Grandpa Richard's side. And then this is a spare bedroom out here.
So the outside is essentially...
There was a porch here that's been torn off.
The outside is essentially the same.
And to get water, we had to carry it from that well yonder.
Where's the well?
See the little house right just over that little tree to the left of the house, left of the TV antenna? That's the well house. It was a well with a bucket. And we had to carry water from there. We had one baseball field right here on this hill, another one right back here where this house is, and another one just on that side, the main one just beyond where this house is. Had 3 baseball fields. Well, we didn't have any outside toilets at all. The boys used the woods up yonder, and the girl used the woods over here.
And that's where you were from 1916 to
1923.
23. And you said you were living only about a mile away at that time.
Yeah, I'll show you now. We're going to turn around and go back. Hazeline Flower lives here. I told I was going to stop and see. But this was our closest neighbor almost at Old Ridge. It's about on through yonder. And I spent a lot of time with Richard here, and I helped Granddaddy work. Just Granddaddy and Richard's all that was living here, you see. And now that barn is the same.
Okay, now he was living here 1919 to 1926.
1919 to 1926.
And you were living where at the time? At the Old Ridge?
Old Ridge, which is back through this way.
About how far a walk?
It'd be 3/4 of a mile.
3/4 of a mile.
But you see, he sold out. He had an auction sale and sold out and quit farming and moved to Albemarle.
How much land did he have here at the time?
He didn't own the farm. It was about, I think, about 50 to 60 acres. And it was when he was living here, the same man on that hill across over on the hill to the right, you know, where we went into the church, and Granddaddy worked it.
Now, when again was it you lived here?
So that thing had to be full. There was a little sausage stuff right here the last time we were here. I was going to pick up with it. She was just gone. Yeah, somebody did.
Address what you're talking about here a little better. I thought perhaps this slide would emphasize
that, you know, I showed you the woods where I wanted you to know where the woods is coming from the old school right out there. Road went right back beside it here. That county won't bother. He bought his car in the early part of 1922. He built a garage. You can see the old lumber yonder where the garage is falling down. He built a garage there. And we went out this way for a while because the road this way was not good enough for a car to get over it. So then he repaired this road up and we went out this way. And when we started the school, the fall of 1923, you had to meet a bus. We went this road over that hill for about a mile to meet a school bus. And after a while, when we leave here, I'll show you. Now, you remember this woods. I want to pass this woods, and I'll show you when we get over here where we came out to catch the school bus. But in November of 1924, 50 years ago this coming November, we moved away from here. Get off the school bus down here, we could start walking, and we'd get up on that hill. We could see the bus going up the hill over here close to that church, you know, where we stopped that time when you were driving your old Plymouth, looking across the ridge. We could be up on that hill walking by the time the bus was going up that hill over yonder. And now that green field was a part of this place. In other words, when Dad lived here, he worked that green field. And this farm joins the Old Ridge farm. They had a common line.
I didn't realize we were that close to the Old Ridge.
It's only about a mile from this road down here to the Old Ridge house going up that hill.
Going up along that.
We figured just about a mile. I never did measure, but that's what we figured it is.
When your dad would move, he sure wouldn't move very far, would he?
Well, you see, when he was at the Ridge, left there in 24, and came back here in 32, and had a common line between the two fields.
And now, where was he from 24 to 32?
Millenport.
In Millenport.
We'll see those in a little bit.
And he was here from
32 to 40.
32 to 40. And this is where he was living when you got married?
No, yeah. He moved here in November 32 and stayed here till November.
Now,
he moved here in August of 32.
Now, you lived here part of the time. Now, when you weren't in school, you'd come home.
Yeah, well, see, I was out of school before he moved here. I finished school in June of 32 and went to work in Albemarle in September 32. I was on a public job when he moved here.
Oh, you were already through at Rutherford?
So I lived here from the time he moved here till I got married in December of 34.
You lived here while you were working in Albemarle?
Of course, I stayed in Albemarle during the week, but I'd come home weekends. This was home.
Were you working at a grocery store? What were you working?
Wholesale grocery and a roller mill.
Yeah. The dates on it.
November 24 till August 26.
And then you just moved right across the road over there.
Yeah.
Now, that guy you were just talking to, you in school with him?
Yeah, I'm here.
Do you remember him from them? Vaguely, I guess.
Oh, yeah. I already told him who he was. I remember he's like me. He's fatter than he was then.
And who's this Lippert you're going to see down here?
He's the man who owned this place here we lived in.
You rented from him? Was the weather really bad for both your mother's and father's funerals?
See, here's your great-granddaddy and grandmother.
Oh, yeah, Millie Dunn.
See over there?
Now, this is, was it Franklin Dunn? He's the one who lived in the first house we stopped at. Right?
See, we were living there. You know where the goat was? See, that's where we were living when he died in 1938. And he had a stroke where he was staying. Mama brought him up there, and he lived about a week in the house. And you see his wife. Now, we'll pass. You remember the old place we went by 3 years ago? The old house where you snapped a lot of pictures, but none of them turned out? That's where he was living when she died in 1892.
Now, who is this Dorothy J?
That's Richard's mother. That's Mama's sister. See, they didn't even put her married name on there when she died.
She died at age 19.
When you know. See, Richard was born in August of 1907. She died in April, let's see. He'd have been 8 months old when she died. 88.
Now, this is where your grandfather Page moved. In 1898.
Yeah.
And how long did he stay?
Stayed here till 1904. 1898 to 1904.
Do you have many recollections of this place?
No, you see, he moved away from here in 1904.
So nobody that you knew at all had any?
Adam was born here, but he was born in 1899. Adam was 5 years old when they moved away from here. And my daddy, you see, was still at home then, because he wasn't married yet.
Did you come down here with Adam recently?
We were down here about 2 years ago. And it was all grown up. We couldn't hardly get in. They've cleaned it up since then. You know, it's a pity to let that old house go down as old as it is.
It really is. It's in moderately good shape. And that's so that it could be preserved. How old was your father when he lived here?
He was 15 when he moved here, and they stayed here 6 years, so he'd have been 21 when he left.
He was still living at home.
He didn't get married till he was 20. He got married in 1980. He was 26 when he got married. Yeah, he didn't get married till 4 years after he moved away from here yet. But that thing has got some solid wood in it.
It really does.
And Luther was at Mount Pleasant and shot himself. Well, you see from here to Mount Pleasant about a horse and wagon. was hard traveling, so they didn't get to go up there. But he was brought home and buried out here at Lambert along in the latter part of the summer of 1904. And then that fall, my grandpa moved away from here. But I bet that tree was here when he lived here.
Is that a hawk circling or a buzzard? It's awful light for a buzzard.
Yeah, this is called the Miss Allman place. Unless Aunt Laurie was too, there was Laurie and Sari and Maddie and Dad and Mary. Let's talk about children, how many Grandpa had. You see, Aunt Annie and Barbara was married, but I don't know about Aunt Laurie. But if she wasn't, and there was Sari and Maddie and Mary and Dad and Adam. I know that there had been that many children with the family living here. And when he moved here, all of those kids were born, except Adam. And in '98, I would assume that Annie and Laurie were both at home yet. So that house would have been full.
Sure would be.
Son's place. You know, I told you he lived before he moved to the first place we stopped this morning in 1916.
Yeah.
This is where he lived then.
Okay.
I don't know when he moved here, but it was sometime in the early 1900s. Because he was living down here when Dad and Mama got married. There's the old barn, but I think the house has been torn down. Yep, the house has been torn down. As far as I can detect, I don't know of a place between. This is where he lived before he moved to the place we just left, where the house is torn down.
What is your best guess on dates for this place?
He moved here, he was living here by the time he was in here, and he died in 1893. Didn't have televisions back then.
Well, that television isn't real either. Okay, now tell me again about this place.
Well, I want to go in the room and look where Granddaddy lay for. Where were you from? Good golly, I've heard that. Here for a little bit.
The doghouse made out of an old refrigerator there. Okay, tell me about this place.
Now this is where Granddaddy was staying with him. He moved here in the fall of 1929. And Granddaddy died in January of 1930. And then that fall, Adam left here and moved to Albemarle. But here's where he was living when Granddaddy died. That goes through, we can't go through there, but let's see if we can get through. Now this was the living room, and when Granddaddy died, there was another room across out there because that's where they put him. His corpse lay in that other room out there that night.
Do you remember that pretty clearly?
Now this was the living room, and there's a little shed room out there.
What kind of roof did it have then?
Just a sloping off roof. Died. It was snowing when my daddy died, and it was snowing when my mother died.
Is that the snow I've heard you talk about, people? When we were standing in the cemetery the last time I was out with you at Herring's Grove, I guess.
Yep, that's the one.
You were talking about people.
That was a big snow. We debated whether the preacher was going to be able to get there or not.
where did he have to come from?
Somewhere over around Oak Burr.
One more time for the tape recorder.
Granddaddy Jonathan Page moved here in 1904.
Now let's see, is that directly from
the Miss Allman place.
the Allman place?
And stayed here till 1920. He left here and moved to a Tucker place down near Red Cross. And stayed 1 year, and then moved back up here to a Chanhatley place where we are now going.
And then after that is when he died at Adams.
And his wife died while he was there in 1927, and then after she died, Adam got married and they moved to Albemarle. That is the place where Granddaddy was living when Grandma died. He moved here. You know, we saw over here at the other place where he lived in 1920. Well, he left there and went down near Red Cross on a Tucker place and stayed 1 year. Moved back here in 1921. The barn was just this side of the big oak tree, and the house was just a little ways the other side of the big oak tree. And there was a spring way on down at the end of the hill. You can see the edge of the woods.
Now, what is that shed there?
That's the granary.
And it was there?
It was there then,
Where was the house relative to
on towards the woods from that house, about 100 feet on the hill.
The house was towards the woods from the granary?
About 100 feet, yes. And then down at the foot of the hill is the spring where they carried water from. And then just to the left of the spring, back about on the equivalent of being opposite the granary from here, is the place where Herring School was located. And Herring School was discontinued about 1925 or 26, and the students were conveyed to Millenport and Ridgecrest. Now, Ridgecrest was built in 1926, and Ridgecrest and Millenport absorbed this school.
Now, where was the school?
On down near the woods, almost just to the right past the granary.
Pretty near the house.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, like a couple hundred feet or
Well,
something?
no, it was way on down on the hill.
Oh, way on down.
It was down on the hill, yeah, way on down next to the creek. There's a creek goes through down there, and it was way down there.
But the house was on the other side of the tree, not this side.
About 100 feet from the tree down towards the woods, Stop there. What we have just been discussing is the Chanhatley place, which is owned by Luther Hatley, or Coot, which was Grandpa Page's son-in-law.
When did Chanhatley own it?
He left here and moved away some years before Grandpa moved here. He moved to town, and his brother bought his place.
When the Pages were living on it, were they renting from him, or?
They were renting from the one that bought it when Chan left.
Chan